Good afternoon, everyone. We're just going to give it about 30 seconds just to let everyone connect and see everyone connecting here. Very nice to welcome you to our webinar today. And as you can see, we are live. Okay, great. We're 1 minute past, so let's kick off. So good afternoon and welcome to IAB Europe's dedicated webinar to premium video. My name is Helen Muzzard and I'm the CMO of IAB Europe. And I'm delighted to be your host today and introduce a fantastic panel of industry experts who will discuss and hopefully debate advertising within premium video environments across Europe. The panel will explore what constitutes premium video. They will dive into the challenges of cross-channel and platform management, and they will share their thoughts on what to consider when looking to buy premium video ads programmatically. So as I said, because we're live today, we love to hear from you and take your questions. So at the bottom of the screen, you'll see that there's a Q&A box. Any questions you have, please place those in, and our moderator will then pose those to the panel at the very end. The webinar is being recorded and we will share it after the event to everyone that's registered, and we'll also put it up onto our website and share across our social channels. So to kick off, I'm really happy and delighted to welcome our moderator for this event, Paul Gubbins, who is the VP of CTV Strategy for Publica. So welcome, Paul, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Helen. As you say, I look after strategy for Publica. We're a global CTV ad server. We work with streaming publishers and smart TV manufacturers to help them construct linear-like TV ad breaks so they can give their advertisers more controls around parameters such as frequency, but also improve their viewers' streaming experiences so viewers aren't bombarded with the same ads back-to-back in the same ad breaks. We are discussing premium video today, what it means to those on the buy side, how they quantify it, how they measure it, but also more importantly, how they evaluate it from the multitude of different supply sources out there. So to kick us off, I'm going to ask each of the panelists to briefly introduce themselves. Clara, I'm going to come to you first.
Absolutely. I'm super excited to be here today. I'm Clara de Rosa. I work at Adform. I'm personally responsible as head of customer success, so working really closely with clients in the UK, but also other markets like Belgium and Netherlands, on ultimately delivering results for their strategies, for their digital strategies. And just a short note on who Adform are: we are a global independent ad tech vendor. We actually cover the full stack. And that's, yeah, in short, what we do.
Excellent, thank you for that. Jamie, you're up.
Hi there, everyone. Yeah, Jamie Caras here. I head up commercial strategy in the UK. I look after our platform businesses, which include ad serving, SSP business, and our DSP side of the business. So FreeWheel work with a lot of the premium video players, broadcasters in the UK, people like Sky and Channel 4, Discovery, and across Europe and in the States. We're part of the Comcast family.
Oh, excellent. Thanks, Jamie. Stephen, yourself.
Hi, great to be here. I'm Stephen. I'm Executive Director for new partnerships at Smartclip and RTL Ad Alliance. So RTL Ad Alliance is the new founded company merging Smartclip Media, Gruner IMS, and RTL Ad Connect. So we're the international sales house for RTL, effectively, and we represent sales across multiple different media formats: TV, video, audio, print, etc. And also represent the Smartclip tech business, the ad server platform. So really looking forward to the debate today and the discussion.
Excellent, thank you, buddy. And last but not least, Franziska.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Franziska Lejeune. I'm a Senior Director Client Success in the MediaMath team, one of the leading DSPs on the market, focusing on strategic client development, focusing on EMEA clients, but also working with global clients across the globe.
Excellent, thank you for that, panelists. Right, first question, a nice and easy one, hopefully. What does premium video mean to each of you, and more importantly, how do you evaluate it? Who wants to kick us off?
I'm happy to kick off, Paul. It's an interesting question, or I'll argue maybe it isn't actually that interesting. But Barb have made a stab at it. recently, and they're talking about editorial sort of content that's been edited and has some oversight over it, regulatory compliance. It faces that sort of pre-valuing in that sort of sense, and also making sure that content is safe and suitable environment for advertisers. So they're all pretty important points, to be honest with you. I would argue that we spend a lot of time defining things, and maybe it's not necessary to actually do that. Essentially, I think there's probably a lot of buyers in this call that will define premium as how much they pay for it. But I'll be interested to see what people think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And maybe for those that aren't familiar with Barb, Jamie, so the company that measures traditional TV inventory and increasingly video inventory, right?
That's right. So Barb are basically funded by the broadcasters as such, brought together by that, but they are wholly independent. They have a panel-based survey that literally people in their homes with boxes clicking on what they're watching. That's how TV has been traditionally measured. So it has a history of working with the top broadcasters, and in fact is funded by them. So yeah, it's a pretty good place to start, I think, with that sort of definition. And then there's always use cases in this. I think it's always, we sometimes get clouded by worrying about the edge cases. Oh, what about this content on this particular platform? I think as a concept, premium video is pretty editorially checked. It is, got regulatory issues to it, and its content needs to be safe. And they'll always find different ways of defining it if you try hard enough. I'm not sure it matters that much.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, and Franziska, from a point of view of MediaMath, as you said, one of the biggest demand-side platforms globally, you work with lots of advertisers, you connect to lots of different inventory sources. Again, a lot of that will be inventory, be that kind of in-stream, out-stream, or increasingly CTV. What does premium video mean to you?
Yeah, so premium video is pretty much, as Jamie already said, like it's about brand safe environment. What about the content? Is it user-generated content or is it professionally generated content? But I think what is also important is not only that we define what premium is, but also like the ad buyer defines what they see as premium, and where it comes in place that brand safety is very key. And of course, like the big players on the market, right? Where you have like the big publishers, that's usually big names, what the ad buyer wants to see on the media plan at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And Clara, I know you and I have discussed this before, actually last week at one of the events in London, but what's your view of video inventory when it comes to driving a different type of outcome above and beyond just branding? Do you have a slight take on how video inventory can be used to drive other metrics within the purchase funnel?
So thank you for that question. It's a really interesting one. So I think a bit like to Jamie's point, sometimes we get so caught up on the kind of definitions and the wording, but I think it's really important to take a step back. So when we think about premium video, but in general, what the advertiser wants to achieve, they are really focused on outcomes and making it really simple to be able to understand how to deliver those outcomes. So I think there's a real value in terms of examples of how premium video can support and drive efficiencies, but as part of a whole media plan, right? Proof in point, we ran, for example, campaigns for Vodafone in the UK, where they leveraged the Samsung ACR technology to be able to drive incremental reach to the TV strategy. And that is at a lower price point with valuable audiences that might not be on linear TV. So really, really important for clients to consider an omni-channel strategy in order to really drive performance, which might not be necessarily a kind of performance KPI such as CPA, but it's the wider, how do I achieve my outcomes for the company? Ultimately, a CMO wants to go back to the board and show the investment they put, what's the outcome of that? And that's just an example of that. So
that's pretty cool. So an advertiser using Adform, working with a TV manufacturer such as Samsung to leverage some of their ACR insights. So you're then targeting kind of streaming inventory to give that advertiser incremental reach into an audience group that maybe they might not be reaching right across broadcasters' BVOD inventory.
Correct, yes. And I think one point that maybe we want to add to that definition of premium video is that I believe Barb is only taking into consideration part of, say, user-generated content. So they've announced around YouTube inventory being included, but only based on the broadcasters actually making that available on YouTube.
Yeah.
But one could argue there's some really hard to reach audiences. User habits are changing. Consumers are consuming a lot of video, but not necessarily in a traditional way. So one could argue that you really need to, as an advertiser now, navigate that. And depending on who you're looking to reach, you might need to rethink what that premium definition might be. So yeah, I think the gaming industry is kind of showing a little bit of that as well.
Yeah, that's a really good kind of overview. Thank you for that. And then, Jamie, I know you and I had discussed on the prep call to this webinar. You were talking about the currency, right? The currency of choice of buyers when they're evaluating video or streaming inventory. What's your school of thought around what the future of currency may be when it comes to pricing and measurement in video?
Well, you know, there's been a lot of effort to try and draw many elements together. I mean, it's about that fragmentation, you know, and providing that sort of holistic view for buyers to buy video. However you're defining it may be one thing. Yeah. You know, broadcasters are looking at C-Flight for measurement and trying to bring those sort of things together, where you're looking at impacts on TV and you look at impressions on digital content, and that's trying to mash that together. Sky have done a one campaign, which is an attempt to try and do that as well. It'll be interesting to see how things evolve. I think historically we've had that problem with the separation between a linear television, which is being a broadcast stream, and digital stuff, which is the IP delivered content. And I think now we are with Sky Glass, Samsung TVs, LG, all these sort of other delivery endpoints, the IP ability to show content and ads accordingly means that we can have a much more level playing field in terms of that, and so price will be more determined about what you want to buy rather than the method it's delivered.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And I guess I've been to a few of these events recently over the last couple of weeks as the world starts going back to physical events, and there seems to be this ongoing debate when it comes to TV measurement. Should it be panels, in the same way that traditional TV has been measured for 25, 30 years, or should it be impression based, to consider the fact that so much more content now is being delivered via the household IP? It's a really interesting debate, and I don't think we've quite landed yet on what the appropriate answer is. Many people are saying that maybe it's a hybrid, right? It's panels and impression-led data, which lead us on to the next question nicely, actually. I mean, how do we think measurement around television and video has actually evolved over the last 12 months? Franziska, I know, again, you and I have touched upon this recently. You had some thoughts around what you're seeing at the DSP level when it comes to that measurement practice and how the markets are evolving around different solutions at the moment.
Yeah, so I think we have to differentiate here between the different markets, especially because there are certain markets which are more developed, I want to say, because of more possibilities. Looking at US being one of the core front-loading markets, right? So looking at EMEA, of course, we're facing a little bit of trickiness, I want to say, on how we can measure, and but we do see that there are great partners in the market, like Audience Project or partners like TV Squared, where we are seeing like there are possibilities for measurement. It's just like I think we still need a couple of more ed tech companies which are covering across supply side, for example, measurement. So kind of like more cross-channel and cross-partner. For MediaMath, we're kind of like, we're agnostic, so we're working with all the partners out there to find the right fit for the client and to get the best outcome for the client, no matter which partner is on the market. And we're always following, like, seeing who's the strongest for the relevant market, relevant client outcome.
Yeah, fair enough. And why do you think it is a little bit more difficult this side of the pond versus in the US? Is it just because we've got different markets, or are we just slower to approach innovation maybe?
I mean, we have the privacy situation, and especially in EMEA, we have like GDPR and all that more in front of us we have to face, as well as, especially with, for example, CTV, like it's a different channel, it's a new channel. Still, everyone needs to adapt to that, as well as like cookie being not available in the future anymore, we have to rethink the entire structure. There are great initiatives out on the market, and there are ways of approaching users in a different way. It's just like the future will bring, or we'll see how ad tech companies will adjust to that.
Yeah, it's a really good point, right? Because sometimes people don't always realize that third-party cookies don't necessarily exist in CTV. It's all application-based, it's device IDs, it's IP targeting. And yes, more TV manufacturers, people like Samsung, have started to implement consent management platforms. But a lot in the CTV ecosystem is still trying to establish how they can work in a privacy compliant way, because it's an evolving area. Certainly when you look at TV sets and how they collect consent and then use that consent to inform targeted advertising practices.
Paul, if I may, I just want to chime in on that, because I think it's a really, really interesting point you raise. And I think it also speaks to the heart of having ad tech companies that are tuned into the needs of European audiences. And I think we definitely see a trend towards more privacy first advertising strategies now across Europe because of the legislation and the regulations. And in general, people, are more and more concerned about kind of, the surveillance ad tech kind of model that they feel has been, thrust upon them over the past number of years. So that's something that we at RTL are really focused on and really working hard on. And in our ad tech strategy, looking a lot into privacy first solutions. We have a product called Vegan Ads, for instance, which takes away a lot of the personalized information, sending it through the bid stream, so that we kind of teach the market that this isn't something that you need to rely on for targeting, actually. And in fact, to the point raised earlier by the panelists, I think we see a trend towards supply side alliances. We have the Ad Alliance in Germany and in the Netherlands, where they're coming together, selling media across multiple different properties and companies, and packaging that up on the supply side into sales products, some of which are privacy first and some of which are more programmatically enabled and more kind of fully transparent to the end user. And I think that those are sort of things within the mix that we are seeing as an important trend in Europe, because you have to have that sort of scale approach in Europe, because we are, let's not forget, a collection of some quite small markets compared to the US ad market.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And are you using other types of signals, Stephen, things like context, to help inform advertisers' targeting choices? So rather than being dependent on any type of PII data or
definitely. Yeah, there's a mix of things. There's offline data as well. We have a product called Smart Audiences, which leverages offline data that takes the IP and syncs it offline with the postcode information, so we can build profiles on household level of people and their kind of demographics, their family status and earning potential, for instance, which is all non-PII targeting, which is pretty cool. But I think also from a measurement perspective, kind of cross-platform measurement, last year we acquired a company called Realytics, and they are very active in the French market primarily, and expanding into Europe. And this is a tool that allows buyers to be able to deduplicate and find incremental viewership and reach across all TV channels, right? So whether that's the linear TV, addressable TV, OTT, broadcast to VOD kind of environments, and that's all executed with a buy side tool, basically. So this is something that we see a big trend in the French market, and I think we'll start to see that coming through in the European markets too.
Yeah, no, I look forward to learning more about that, because I know that's a real pain point, right, for advertisers when they're trying to get that holistic understanding of reach, frequency, and attribution across all of their screens and video imagery. Okay, cool. Thank you for that, Stephen. Clara, Adform. Again, one of the biggest DSPs in the market. You've been advocates of better standards, more transparency for many, many years in trying to demystify the supply side for those on the buy side within the agencies. How do you think measurements evolved over the last 12 months? And are there any nuances in any particular areas of the European market?
So I think first, kind of to add on to some of the tools that are around, I think the most exciting one really stems from an advertiser-led effort, which is Origin. So the WFA has launched this initiative to make sure there is a way of reconciling within the industry across, broadcasters, but also digital channels. And so it's great to hear, in light of everything we've discussed, that actually Europe for once is ahead versus the US, with Origin UK launching as we speak. So they're really looking to plug a gap when it comes to a view across digital platforms, but also making sure that data is auditable, when we talk about kind of walled gardens, which is really making sure there's a set of unduplicated reach across the likes of YouTube, Facebook, etc. And then making sure that that is coming in conjunction with broadcaster content, whether that is on demand or not. So I think that's super exciting, and again, driven by advertisers. So I know that Origin still are kind of working and looking to expand that network of all the kind of industry coming together to drive this. So I just wanted to add that, because I think that's really important. I think we'll see more and more tools coming into play, but having an independent body to really supplement this would be great. And of course, there's also initiatives like IAB Tech Lab. So we look towards the IAB to help us solve these challenges. And then in terms of kind of Adform specifically, we are very vocal in the industry. We are PwC audited multiple times, and really great to see that things like ISBA study 2.0, let's say, is showing great results in terms of the industry moving forward. But I think in this context, where we really offer a solution today that has been really in the works for the last 4 years, is around identity resolution. So we are currently operating and able to offer solutions from a targeting and measurement perspective when it comes to third-party environments and first-party environments. So today we do have that solution. Of course, with CTV is a slightly different environment, but again, we're looking to continue to evolve that, and I feel really proud of being able to do that for advertisers already today.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, Clara. So from your point of view, you think it's going to be around industry bodies such as Origin, supported by the WFA, driving those collective standards across the industry, the industry, to make video inventory more measurable for those on the buy side?
Yes, I think that would be really important. Again, because I think at a micro level, advertisers have choices today, right? Yeah. We can use Samsung ACR Audience Project, and we, myself and MediaMath colleague today, and most of us we're all agnostic. So that's exciting in terms of being able to support the advertiser need. But there is a need for kind of the industry coming together and solving for this. And I think this is not a new problem. I mean, I think Simon Thomas from Group M mentions this, being a problem since the days of TV and print. We have been using proxies all along. So I think the exciting stuff is that, there are trends with signals possibly going away, right? There's a bit of, constant evolution, and we're always behind on what the latest news is. But the problem has always been here. So we're all kind of, it's great to see industry bodies coming together to help solve for that, and have technology evolve like Adforms to make sure we are offering solutions that are transparent to our advertisers.
Perfect. And Franziska, from a MediaMath point of view, what's your take on, the bodies that are evolving, be it around CFly, Origin, what the tech lab's trying to do to bring more measurability to the inventory? Is there a view that you take on your side of the fence, again, from that DSP view of the inventory landscape?
Yeah, I can definitely agree with Clara on that we definitely need a more unified environment, I want to say, kind of like partners across the market. There are solutions which are not unified, in my opinion, yet, but we have had some very good experience with, for example, Audience Project on measurement, target group fits, kind of like identifying what has been delivered and seeing like if the outcome was what the advertiser actually desired to achieve. Yeah. So we already see great results there. The question is about scalability in the future, about like making sure it's doable across all channels. And I think what is also one important factor, which we always have to keep in mind, it's for us as the experts on the market, it's a new, for example, CTV is a new channel, right? Fairly new channel. For the client, it's even newer, I want to say. So yes, you have like front mover clients which are experiencing testing for already quite some time, but you still have clients which need the education, which need the knowledge, kind of like us as the experts, telling them exactly what we have tested in the past, what has been working good, kind of giving them some guidelines. And being honest also to the client, saying like, yes, we need some more technology maybe on the market, which is across all channels and being more unified, but we already have possibilities. And I mean, it's a both side development, right? It's on the one side, you need the demand, but on the other side, you need the offering as well.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And I think, Stephen, you and I were discussing, it's like, again, around the alliances. So what could broadcasters collectively do? But then extend some of those learnings and insights back out to the growing AVOD and fast ecosystem as well, to make sure if you're on the buy side, you want, again, that holistic view, right, across all of your video and CTV inventory. You don't want to buy in one pool of BVOD inventory and then not understand what your frequency metrics are across fast or AVOD. Is that something that you guys are practically still trying to work to understand, to ensure that you can give your advertisers that holistic view across all of their screens?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really what RTL Ad Alliance is standing for, because we kind of stand in between the RTL and the other broadcasters that we work with, and of course then our third-party inventory partners that we work with, whether it's LG or Samsung or Rakuten, Pluto TV on the CTV side, and of course, as you mentioned, advertisers want to be able to reach their audiences across all of those channels, and they don't necessarily want to have targeted buys in each different area with individual deal IDs all over the place in multiple DSPs. That's not ideal. They need to be able to collect this into one place. So we aim to be able to be that kind of aggregation point for them and allow them to do that. But I think we also have to be kind of cognizant of the fact that on the supply side there that we just discussed, there are big variations in especially in Europe, on the types of content and the ad experiences that go across this so-called CTV opportunity that we hear a lot about in the US press. Because I think if we're honest about it to ourselves here in Europe, I still think the broadcasters are the ones that are contributing the most of the volume on CTV, but they are not themselves going out and selling CTV on deals. They are selling their packages, TV and digital combined in many cases. So it's quite hard for an advertiser to be able to navigate that. So I think there needs to be partners that can kind of tease out the nuances and find those commonalities and bring that together in products, whether that's programmatic products or IO based products. And that's really what we try and focus on, both for national and international buyers. So they're all governed by different standards, of course, as well. Broadcasters are regulated by Ofcom in the UK. I know that some of us have some opinions on that, and that means that they have totally different challenges on the programmatic delivery side as well. So it's a tricky one. So you need tech partners who understand that difference and can bring it to the market.
Yeah, completely agree. And you also need that measurement component, right? So at this point in time in the UK, I personally wouldn't say to somebody looking to target TV audiences, don't work with broadcasters. They've still got fantastic proprietary content, still got fantastic reach, scale. But if you look at the growing AVOD and fast inventory coming from the likes of LG, Samsung, Rakuten, Roku, and all of the companies you just mentioned, they can deliver great incrementality now to many advertisers. But it's how do we as an industry quantify that incremental reach so we can get more traditional TV advertisers testing the growing addressable TV ecosystem. We can encourage more budgets to come in from social, from digital into CTV. But again, we can only really do that if we can quantify that we're delivering them incremental reach above and beyond what they may have got on their traditional TV plans. Cool. So we discussed a lot about what might be coming down the pipe in regards to innovation, what the future of TV measurement may look like, how those on the buy side are evaluating video and CTV inventory. But what solutions are actually in place today? I'd be intrigued to hear from each of you around, some of the things that you can actually offer to advertisers. If they said, right, we've got you on the media plan this quarter, we want to do some cross-screen targeting. Are the solutions available today to offer an agency that understanding of what's happening across mobile display and video, be it originating from desktop or CTV? Clara, is that something that you guys offer those on the buy side if they've got a seat on Adform? Is there that capability to try and do some cross-screen targeting and understanding of how the campaign's performing?
Yeah, so again, there's a little bit of theory and there's a little bit of practice.
Okay.
So again, kind of going back to our solution, ID Fusion, we basically operate with devices. So we're fully agnostic and work with 40+ first-party identifiers, meaning that if you've got a publisher ID, an advertiser ID or a MAID coming through, then we are able to reconcile that data in two ways. One is cross frequency capping, so cross browsers, really solving for the deprecation of third-party cookies. Just an example, today in the UK, we're seeing the top 1,000 sites, 89% of their traffic is actually first-party IDs. So it's not even in the future, this is happening today.
That's cool.
Yeah. So we have got a solution to with ID Fusion, resolve those identifiers and being able to cross browser and frequency cap. There's also the measurement piece, which I think is important. And again, with our solution, Cookieless Insights, we are able to then measure unique reach and frequency across, when we do get these IDs through, right? So we're able to do that across third-party and first-party IDs. So that's kind of live today already in platform. But again, it is dependent on us receiving an ID. And I think that kind of ties into everything we said, where when we look at kind of CTV specifically, it's still a nascent market, a nascent channel, if you like, in Europe, right? So there's a little bit of growth that still needs to be done there and kind of standards to be set. But that's quite exciting in terms of what we can already offer today when it comes to really omni-channel strategy.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's really interesting. I was just trying to get my head around that. So if you're an advertiser, and you want to target some video inventory via Adform, if let's say they were targeting Safari traffic, there might be signal loss, right? They might not know because there's no device ID or third-party cookie being supported. But within your platform, you can give that advertiser that overarching view via the different identifying capabilities you've got within Adform. So at least you can do frequency capping as the user moves across different browsers or different app-based ecosystems.
Correct. And yeah, I think again, it's been in the making for 4 years, live 2 years, and it's kind of something we're really proud as a European ad tech vendor, because also we need to be so compliant when it comes to GDPR, and so again, having that European heritage has really helped us propel. We kind of looked at this far before it actually happened, and as we know, there is a delay, but really important to know that already today advertisers are not reaching their this audience, and we offer that solution in a transparent way. And then maybe the last point is that this is also all captured as log level data, meaning that again, we're really passionate about that transparency and advertisers being able also to build their own attribution based on this type of granular data. So really exciting in that front. Again, like the caveat here is that this is space signals it's a very hot topic, right? So the future might look slightly different. And again, we want to just make sure we're ahead of that curve.
Yeah, and it's evolving very quickly, right? I think any solution that those on the buy side are building to push more advertising budgets through to premium publishers, especially when they're losing their signals, is to be applauded. So that sounds like fantastic innovation from your side of the fence. Franziska, so again, MediaMath, you plug into almost all of the SSPs globally. Again, you've been big champions in the market for as long as I've been in programmatic, which feels like a lifetime. You were one of the first big scale global DSPs. What types of solutions would you offer to those on the buyer side if they're trying to get a better understanding of their customers as they move around different browsers, consuming video content?
Yeah, so definitely we're working with, regarding identity, we're working with the big players on the market, like LiveRamp, ID5, you name them, right? So we're connected to, I would say, I don't want to say all of them, but pretty much the majority of them we're connected to. As of today, we are able to target users from the client towards any environment via the usage of LiveRamp or ID5 IDs. Of course, we're also working with our MediaMath connected ID graph to kind of get all the users together and ensure that we are able to do the frequency and the measurement part in the future as well, moving forward to the cookieless browsers as of right now. So we are capable of targeting users across those browsers with video, with display, whatever you name it. So that is of course the status right now. And then for yes, CTV being like, you know, the question here is always like, do you have impressions or do you have households? So that's kind of like, I think, a new discussions moving forward and how that is going to develop over time. But we can also do, for example, we have done with Happydemics, I think they were called Happydemics. So we're doing like brand uplift studies and all that. So there are possibilities. I think at the stage of right now, it's still very customized towards a client's needs and understand what the client exactly wants to achieve to find the best solution as well as the best coverage for the specific market.
Yeah, no, that's really insightful. Thank you for sharing that. And Jamie, your side of the fence, again, one of the biggest video ad servers globally. What types of trends do you see when your teams are speaking to publishers? How are they thinking about passing signals or enabling those on the buy side to better measure their inventory? I'm assuming lots of the publishers you speak to are heavily involved in those types of discussions at the moment.
It's an interesting one from a broadcaster point of view. Their world is essentially changing. They've had a massive direct sold business, you know, which hasn't involved programmatic for decades, and they've had their own measurement to go with it, which we referred to earlier with Barb, so forth on the linear side. And suddenly there's another world out there that they're dipping their toes into, either fully or not at all in some cases. And there's a little bit of protection about some of the way they're working. You know, some big UK broadcasters are less enthusiastic about sort of getting involved in more digital programmatic side of the business, and some are embracing it quite a lot. Channel 4, for instance, is heavily moving into the programmatic world. From a buyer's point of view, they're conscious of the fact that we've mentioned it. A lot of the broadcasters have different rules, different regulations onto Ofcom. They have their own data. They're very protective of it. It holds a lot of value, and they're trying to marry that direct sold business with their programmatic business. And in that sense, the sort of measurement piece becomes problematic because the direct sold is kind of seen differently in a way from the programmatic side. But there's also a ton of measurement companies out there that they're working with, and the lack of uniformity is problematic. And each time a broadcaster signs up with a different measurement company, we split the atom again type sort of thing, and it becomes quite tricky. So it's about collaboration, it's about understanding. And the broadcasters are on that journey, and some are further than others. In Europe, it's in continental Europe, some are much further down that programmatic path. In the UK, some are miles back, and some are much more front and centre, and some are in between. So it's interesting where you literally do, I don't want to say generational divide, but it is kind of a little bit like that, to be honest with you, where there's another language that's been spoken by a lot of the programmatic side of the business as opposed to the more traditional side of the business, and it becomes difficult to traverse that. And equally, the broadcasters done really well, to this junction. They're still doing really well, and they own their own landscape. So why would you want to necessarily move into a more complicated, wider pool of people and measurement and everything that goes with it? So there is a bit of a sort of hiatus period, I'd say, whilst that happens, but it is inevitable because the global players are there. Google's of this world, the YouTube and Netflix and the others that will come along, invariably create a much bigger global picture for buyers to buy across, and suddenly local markets get more challenged in how they can sell. But it's not quite there yet, but it is happening, and it's eroding. The linear business is being eroded, and you see by most figures that it is reducing. So moving into more of a digital VOD programmatic world is inevitable, and I think for me, those players, because they have been the leaders in the industry essentially for a long time, have to really lead in this and form that collaboration. So, and allow others in as well, to be honest with you, to a large degree, if you fit into that premium video marketplace. So it's going to be interesting.
If I may, sorry, I would just love to give two examples of broadcaster or countries or markets where I think broadcasters are being very innovative in this area, because I feel like I should stand up for the more advanced broadcasters, and I'm talking about continental Europe, as Jamie mentioned. So I think first of all, in Sweden, the broadcasters are coming together in a premium video alliance and selling jointly on the Smartclip platform. But what's interesting about this approach is that they're really targeting non-traditional TV buyers, so the more smaller national buyers with it's a programmatic video approach, which is DSP agnostic. So any agency, small or large, can buy BVOD inventory through the Premium Video Alliance, and it's really being used as a channel to attract new advertisers who are new to TV as a way of testing the performance compared to the YouTubes and the other online video channels. So that's one, I think, which is quite interesting. So they're really going after a different pot of money, to your point earlier, Paul. And then the second area that I think is quite interesting that we see is in Germany. The broadcasters are coming together in that market, and actually jointly going to market through a buy-side DSP, DForce, offering addressable TV inventory and cross-device targeting capabilities across online and ATV, which allows that ability to do that, retargeting and that incremental reach story with a cross-device graph, etc. in the German market, and that's all controlled into a single DSP instance in that case. So buyers it's the only place to buy that inventory, and that's tightly controlled in the German market actually. So a couple of different approaches, but I think both quite innovative and quite forward thinking when it comes to broadcasters taking the lead on programmatic strategy.
Yeah, completely agree. Thanks for sharing that, Stephen. And Jamie, your points as well, I think, were spot on. If you look at what the broadcasters are doing in the UK, epic innovation from the likes of ITV around Planet V, Channel 4 leaning into the programmatic monetization of their streaming ad breaks. But I think, there's going to be increasing pressure in the TV market over the next several years. You've got the likes of Netflix that now supports Barb, which is the currency of choice for TV ad buyers. They're also supporting verification solutions from companies like Integral Ad Science. So that enables them to not only go after those traditional TV ad budgets, but increasingly those new entrants to TV that you was just talking about, Stephen. So I think there's going to be a lot of innovation happening from broadcasters in the UK and further afield in Europe, in the ways in which they lean into programmatic, but in a very controlled way, right? They've got 30 plus years of trading relationships. They've got very, very scaled premium inventory. They can't just open up to, open exchange. They can if they want to, but there are controls in place. Most of them are heavily direct sold with high fill rates. So they'll be leaning into programmatic in ways that work specifically for their needs. And where I think we'll see a lot of kind of disruption is from the AVOD and the fast services that are launching in Europe, and they'll lean into programmatic much quicker, right? Because they're used to data, they're used to leveraging programmatic for deal discovery, yield discovery, and they will be operating heavily within the open marketplace, and they'll be converting some of those deals into the high yielding PMPs and PG activations. So I think two things playing out at the moment: traditional broadcasters with BVOD testing programmatic, seeing how they can extract value from it. And then you've got the AVOD, the fast, and the TV OEMs leaning much quicker into programmatic generally because they're used to transacting in that way. Okay, cool.
Sorry, on that as well, and it's really worth noting from the technical point of view, unified decisioning is very key for a lot of the broadcasters. Yeah. When you have a direct sold business and you have programmatic business mixed together, then there has to be some understanding about what is in the pod, right? What's in the break. So often, if you have a solely programmatic business, one piece of ad tech can make a decision for the whole thing, and it kind of it's fine. But when you start mixing those worlds, you have to have a unified decisioning tool. And that enables them to understand what was preceding and what is coming, and what is allowed and what isn't allowed. So you can sort of avoid conflictions and, you know, same things and same breaks, and content decisions can be made. So that whole unified decisioning piece is something we work with the broadcasters on specifically, and is the world of difference. When you are mixing those worlds, there is operational considerations that you need to think about as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's something we do quite a lot at Publica as well. We'll work with a streaming publisher who's got direct sold business, and we'll set the rules for them, but also open up their inventory to programmatic, but around the price points that they're comfortable with, right? So they can manage the slots, they can optimize on a revenue per second basis. They can make sure that the same brand isn't going to run back to back with their competitors. But absolutely, Jamie, I think it's crucial. Any broadcaster service leaning into programmatic is working with the right types of ad serving tools that understands all of the nuances of streaming, right? Otherwise, very easy for them to break their experience. And fundamentally, they have to be delivering a good experience to their end user. They can't have, you know, screens that are buffering, or ads playing that are much louder than the content, or ads playing that are in the wrong language to the content. So I completely agree. Technology is crucial to these broadcasters testing programmatic.
If you're talking about live, if you're talking about live as well, I mean, that's another level of complication where you know you have a certain, you know, the break has to be a certain time length. You know, you look at dynamic ad insertion or server side ad insertion is another level that needs to be considered. And again, when you're talking about big tentpole events, mistakes can't happen. It's all part of the considerations.
Yeah, absolutely crucial. And that's when you talk about that, Jamie, that's just for the audience that may not be aware. So server-side ad insertion, that's when the ads are stitched into the content, right? So it's like a seamless stream.
Yeah, essentially on live content, you want to ad serve into that. It's not a VOD piece of content. It's not a pre-roll that's, you know, just starts. It's stitched into content. It's a football break, you know, in half time, I should say. And it's got to be 3.5 minutes long type sort of stuff. So that's a big consideration.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Right, changing gears slightly, talking from the point of view of those within the agencies or the brands trying to evaluate the inventory ecosystem again, be it pre-roll, outstream, or able or fast. What types of things would you recommend them to be looking at when they're evaluating inventory? Jamie, let's start with you again. You're probably ideally placed, as I said, one of the biggest ad servers in the market. What do you think good video inventory looks like in your personal opinion?
I mean, you know, I think we discussed this. Really, the eye of the beholder is a little bit there, isn't it? Really, it depends what you want to buy. But if it's safe pair of hands, you are looking at broadcaster material. You're looking at that premium video, whatever broadcaster means, whether it's a channel 4, it's a Sky, or it's a fast channel that's on the endpoint that you feel is a set-top box, or, you know, a CTV type sort of stuff. It very much depends what you're kind of after, really, to be honest with you. I'm not really bent on it, if I have my own personal opinion. I think eye of the beholder sums it all up. It's what you want. There's more risks in certain type of buying than there is others. And that will be defined usually by the price. Yeah, of course. And that's something I have to make a decision.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And also the buying mechanism, right? Clara, you know, from a DSP point of view, you've got more and more ad dollars now being transacted in a programmatic way, targeting streaming inventory. Are there certain types of controls or recommendations that you try to give to those on the buy side, or do you just give them the tools, the inventory access, and kind of let them make up their own decisions in regards to what they deem to be as premium or high quality streaming inventory?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So it depends, again, how we work with clients. But ultimately, again, being agnostic means that they can bring things like brand safety tools, right? So we know DV actually has got quite an extensive suite, more to come from Integral Ad Science, just to mention that. But I would say paramount to all of this is brand safety for clients and advertisers. And I would maybe take a step back. I think kind of when looking at considerations of buying video programmatically in general, or really buying anything, we need to look at, the client needs to consider what is their objective and what is the target audience, how will I measure success, and what tactics or levers can I pull in flight during campaigns. One thing that actually is gaining, for example, a lot of traction in this industry, and again, a video week, we saw New Frontiers last week, is very popular, is around attention metrics, for example. And one example of us being able to do that at Adform is we're agnostic, so can work with any partner that an advertiser can bring, whether it be a Lumen, an amplified intelligence, to really look at whether the ads are being seen on whichever screen. But also we're able to offer an algorithm, which we recently launched around attention metrics, which is basically looking at viewability, video completion rate, and audio on. So again, that's the lever that a client can take into consideration, or an agency, when looking at planning the campaign. But I think these are like micro level details. I think we really need to go back with what is the client trying to achieve, and really challenge that they are clear on that measure of success. Because I think a lot of times this doesn't happen enough, and therefore the outcomes are maybe, they're looked at kind of 1 month on of activity, and then is that really successful? That's not long enough. There needs to be a really good plan, and I think agencies and clients really need to look at that with us advising them.
Excellent. And Franziska, from your side, is there like a playbook that you give to new advertisers on your DSP when it comes to video and CTV inventory?
Kind of. Of course, we do have some certain best practices based on the experience we've seen in the past, but agreeing with Clara on that as well is, what is the KPI, what is the desired outcome of the client that kind of defines the campaign setup. What we always, or what we have as a possibility is, like, when you have one campaign, you have different strategies you can follow to achieve the outcome, the desired outcome. And MediaMath has created a great feature, which is called dynamic budget allocation, where you can actually shift the budget, or the algorithm is actually shifting the budget between the different strategy based on the outcome and based on the based on the KPI outcome. So it's like, it reduces the manual optimization on like deciding where to shift budgets. So you can actually let the algorithm as well as the client test more things than prior to that, potentially, to give the algorithm the flexibility to actually deliver where it works.
Perfect. I couldn't agree more. Okay, to wrap it up, I've got one last question. I'm going to ask each of you to briefly, I know it's really difficult, right, to forward gaze because our industry evolves and changes so quickly, but predictions, your predictions for the next 12 months when it comes to premium video, streaming, CTV inventory, what's going to happen? Jamie, let's kick off with you, buddy.
Okay, very briefly then, I think broadcasters are going to move to more IP delivered content, which is going to enable them to do more programmatic activity, which would be great. I think fast channels are going to pop up everywhere and then eventually consolidate, because this has already happened before, in terms of, if we go back to satellite television or whatever you want to call it, back in the day, they all sprung up and they all consolidate into one. So I think there'll be, in one sentence, there'll be delivery methods will change and consolidation will happen.
I love those predictions. Excellent. Thank you, Jamie. Stephen, what about from your side?
Sorry, I would echo what Jamie said, and I think just to bring those two together, I think we'll start to see the broadcasters really experimenting in the fast space actually as well. So I think whether that's launching their own, and they already are launching their own fast channels inside their own app ecosystems that they operate as owned and operated, or indeed considering the existing platforms as a potential distributor of their own channels and breaking out individual IP channels based on individual. We already see Love Island TV, for instance, from ITV as an example. I could see that being distributed on more than just the ITVX platform. So I think this is definitely going to be a trend ahead, which is going to be really interesting to watch, because obviously this effectively means broadcasters are and manufacturers are entering into a relationship not unlike the operator telco relationship that they've had historically. So I'd be very interested to see how that plays out. So I think that's one. And of course, just more HVOD, hybrid VOD services, more people coming into the space, Apple TV and others, I think we'll definitely see that happening.
Yeah, completely agree. Thank you for those excellent predictions. Franziska, from your side?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much a lot has been said already, but to add on to that, what I'm seeing, like more not to the CTV environment, but rather to the classical video, that potentially what we see coming up would be DCO on, which is more like creative related, but DCO for video being more on the road, and how do you say, a good development, like next to display, just like being creative more there as well, because like the classical video channel needs to be challenged now as well.
Yeah, completely agree. And last but not least, Clara, you're forward gazing for the next 12 months.
I had an essay on this and just trying to summarize it. I loved everyone's points, and I think I would just add a few topics that maybe have not been mentioned yet. So I think the topic of carbon emissions, with companies being challenged on ESG, is going to get bigger and bigger. One way to also work with that is around attention metrics, which again, I think that's going to evolve. There's already a lot of players, but I think that will continue to evolve, and it's a really exciting space that we've got very vested interest in. And then I think one thing that actually I was maybe expecting Stephen to mention but hasn't come up is buying models from broadcasters. So there's already Atlas Media about to launch in 2 days the CPM model across linear and non-linear. So I think that's quite exciting, to see how that really will have an impact in Europe, because this is a European broadcaster, and also like see what the impact is in terms of their infrastructure to support this, and also how agencies are looking to evolve to support TV being bought differently, and really to marry more the online space. So I'll stop there because I think we're out of time.
No, that's fantastic, and thank you for mentioning the carbon piece. It's going to be hugely important, I think, over the next 12 months, certainly in programmatic advertising, not just video and CTV. Listen, that was a really, really interesting discussion. Thank you for that, panelists. I think there's a lot happening, certainly from broadcasters that are leaning quicker into programmatic than ever before. We've got the rise of TV manufacturers like Samsung and LG now that are building very scaled advertising businesses. Those on the buy side, there's never been a better time to target and serve TV advertising. Those sitting in their living rooms, there's never been a better time to be a TV viewer. There's so much content. Discovery of those services is going to improve drastically. I think it's going to become much easier to find AVOD and FAST services on your television, as those app stores become much more intuitive to replicate what's happened in mobile and desktop. But hopefully we get the chance to have this discussion again in 12 months' time, and we can look back at some of our forward-facing predictions, and hopefully most of us are right, because I think your predictions were spot on. So a big thanks again for taking part today. Thanks for the IAB for hosting us, and I look forward to seeing many of you in person soon. Thanks everyone for joining also.
Thank you, Paul. A big thank you to our panel, and we're absolutely going to hold you to all coming back at the end of the year, because there were such fascinating predictions. So let's do that. We're going to put that in the calendar at the end of the year. We'll come back and let's test and see if those predictions are true, and everyone here is live and can rewatch and see. So yes, thank you to everyone who's joined us from across Europe this afternoon. The webinar has been recorded, so we will be sharing it very shortly on our site. Thanks so much. Bye.
Everyone.